Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for the third video in our mini-series Surprise in a Book ... So what I have done is I've measured out a book cover again out of my just graham cracker box, and so what we need is a front and a back cover and a spine. The spine, we're going to need that many pages of book in density, not fluffy or anything. And so what I did was I went and I just got, this is a book that I tore the cover off of, and this is what I'm going to use for my book pages because we want a nice solid amount. Now, if you don't have a book that you've torn apart, you can just use newspapers and just make that thickness of newspaper, regular paper, scrap paper, whatever you have, you can use for your book pages. But if you have a book, this is a good way to use it. And the thing is that this I measured 3 inches and 3 inches with a 1.5 inch spine. If I put this book in here, there's going to be quite a bit extra room, and I don't want that extra room. So what I'm going to do is I am going to basically line my book up with that front line. And then I'm going to just come in and put a line right there, and that is where I am going to fold my spine so that my book pages fit in there with the right amount of space. And so I'm going to measure and see how far that is. And that is 4 1/8 inches. So I'm just going to do a couple more marks at 4 1/8 and 4 1/8. And draw a line right there. So now this is going to be my spine, and this is nothing. Now I need to have a 3 inch, I have a 3 inch front cover, so I need a 3 inch back cover. So again, I'm going to go from that line and just go 3 inches, 3 inches, 3 inches. And I'm going to just cut that little bit of extra off. And now I'm going to fold my book, remembering this is not my line, this is my new line. So I'm going to do that one first so I don't accidentally fold the wrong one. I'm just going to fold that up right there and come over and fold up this side. And then I'm going to fold it back the other way. Make sure that you've got it straight. Whoops. Okay, and then we'll really quickly fold this one this way. And then just give it a check to make sure that our book is going to fit in here. And it's going to fit in there very nicely. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make, I made this 4 inches high. I made this so that it would fit in my box with lots of room because it still has to have an envelope around it. And so I made it 4 inches by 3 inches. I thought that would be a cute little book. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this book with a ruler. And it's going to be, instead of 3 inches, I'm going to make it 2 7/8. I'm just going to make it a little bit shorter than my book cover. And then I am going to make it 4 inches tall, maybe 1/16 inch less than 4 inches in case. So just a touch less that way. And so I'm going to use my X-Acto knife I didn't quite get that right. 3. And I am going to hold my ruler on here, and I'm just going to cut, 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 cut. It takes a while. And then just do it here too. Just cut, cut, cut until you get cut all the way through the whole book. When you get a few cut, you can rip off those pages and to get them out of your way. So after I cut through 4 or 5 pages, I'll take those 4 or 5 pages and I'll just rip those off, holding this here, keeping this here because we want this to be solid. This is what we're looking for. So we're going to cut that out, and I will be right back because that bell was popping, so I have to go. Be back in a minute. Okay, I wanted to pop back on really quick and just show you what I was talking about when I was talking about cutting it. So I already have quite a bit of it cut, and this is what has come off so far. And don't forget that, you might have some really nice pictures in whatever book you're cutting out. As you're cutting through, if you have a knife, one of X-Acto knives like this, they work the best because you can extend the blade as you go. Start short so you can cut, 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 and then as you start getting deeper down the page, you want to go ahead and be able to extend that a little bit so that it will go all the way down to where you need to cut, and you can still keep a nice straight line with the blade. And this one I got at Harbor Freight. I think it was like 39 cents or something like that. Regular 59 and on sale for 39. So, and then you can also get them at the Dollar Tree. I think 3 for $1. Or 2 for $1. So the type that extends is a nice knife to have. And also these knives are nice because as they get dull, you can break bits off. They have little lines on them, and you can break off the next section so that you have a nice sharper point. When you're doing it like this, you're using a lot of the blade, but normally you're just using that point and it gets dull. So with other ones where they just have just the little point, when the point gets dull, you're just kind of done with it and have to get a new one. So these really are nice X-Acto knives to use. You don't need the fancy ones from the craft store because these actually, to me, in my opinion, work better. So, but what I started out with was the whole book like this. And I just put my ruler on here. You want a metal ruler if you have one, or a solid ruler. And then I just ran down and down and down and down and down for a little while. Then I turned the book, came over here, did the same thing for a little while. And then I went ahead and I just peeled those pages off until I got down to where I was done cutting. Then I cut some more and peeled those pages off. It gets them out of your way, and it causes less problem with your cutting. So I'm almost to the bottom, and I'm not going to cut completely through. I'm going to just take a little bit more, leave about this much on the base of the book. And so, but now once you get to this point, you don't really have to have your ruler there. You could just hold it like this. I find that if I have my ruler on there, it helps me keep my fingers out of the way, which is very important. Make sure you keep your fingers out of the way. Easiest way to get it to work well is to start a little bit above where your page is going to start, and make sure that you keep your knife nice and straight up and down. Don't be doing this because that will make the edges of your book that you're cutting, it will make those edges wonky. So that's probably about enough, and then I'm going to come over here and put it on here. Now, I have never made one where the edges are perfect. So, if you're the more careful you are, the straighter you're going to be, but you're going to get a little bit of wave to your pages. Okay, so then I'm just going to take those pages off. Oh, and I said I wasn't going all the way through. Yes, I am. Whoops. That's about as far as that's cut. I am going to cut this all the way, obviously, to the bottom. We have to cut our book out. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing with this piece here in the middle. And I just marked a 1/2 inch all the way around the edge, and I'm going to cut the center out so we have a place to put our surprise inside of our book. And so this will be cut all the way, but the center, when I'm cutting through the center, I'm going to leave a nice solid base at the bottom, so that the bottom of this little opening has a nice solid bottom. You don't have to do that if you need it to be as deep as the whole book. You do have your back cover, and you can just make sure that's solid. Now this one, I don't really go past. I told you on here, it's easier just go past your book and then start. But with here, you really need to start at where the lines meet. You want to start right in the corner. And this one you're going to take a little more time with. The other one, you can go a little bit faster. Make sure you've got something underneath, especially when you're cutting this and you're going to go off the edge of your book. And make sure that you don't pull it directly towards you. I've got it kind of on an angle to me so that if I slip, I don't cut myself. But I'm going to start now. A nice thing to do, and I'm going to grab my pen. I should have just extended these lines all the way across the page, or at least past where they're at. Because that way you can see when you're cutting, you can see where to start and where to stop. Because otherwise your ruler has that line pretty well covered up. And so now I know that I need to start right here and end right here, because when I put this ruler on here and I want it right on the line, then where does the line start and where does the line stop? So that's why if you extend it all the way out, you know, start here and stop here. So you're just going to, and again, now I've got my blade way out too far. So I need to slide that blade back because I'm just getting started. Gotta lock it. You pull these two pieces apart and that's what locks your knife in its place. And then I know I'm going to start at that line. And I'm going to stop at that line. Now, because you're stopping at that line at the bottom, sometimes you may not be going quite that far. So what I normally do, because it's hard to really see where my razor blade is and where that corner is, what I normally do then is I turn it and then I come in from the other side. But carefully, because you don't want to make a whole bunch of shreds in your paper, and I'm not going to go the full length. I'm only going to cut this corner. And then you're going to do that all the way around. And then do it just, you know, like a couple of times, on each line. Go all the way around. Cut the line a couple of times. Like that. And you can kind of feel it when you hit the other line. Once you've got these two lines cut, you can kind of feel when you get to the up and down line as you're coming across here. But you're just going to go like this. And if you find when you go to take your pages out that your corner's not cut, use your knife to cut it. Don't rip it, because the further down you get, the harder it will be to straighten that out. And then we're just going to take all of these out. Now I've drawn on the front of this. I can just take this one right out. Or I could put a piece of color paper on top of that and glue this to it so that when you open the book, the first page is solid. But you're just going to, and I don't normally, I don't usually fold this back. I leave it like it is, and I just reach in and take the pages out until they don't come out anymore. That's probably about it. And then I'm going to just cut and cut, and remembering that however deep my pages are getting, I have to extend my knife out a little bit further. So I'm going to finish cutting this off, and I'm going to cut all of these pages out. And don't forget to keep these, because they work really well for cute little embellishments. So you can, you know, put all sorts of little things on them and they make really cute embellishments. Or you can fold them in half and make really cute little tiny books. So I'm going to finish cutting all of this out and then I will be back. Okay, I am back and I got it cut as much as I'm going to. So I got it all cut out, and here there's a bit of a bump in my book. It's not enough necessarily to worry about, for me anyways. And I went through my book and I cut a nice size hole that I could put a nice little surprise in there. And I cut about that much, so that's probably about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And I left this here. I was only going to leave about this much, but the deeper you get, the harder it gets to cut, and I was getting tired of cutting it, and I figured that this was a big enough section, so that's where I quit. And it does get to where it gets a little bit, you get a little bit of these little tiny shavings that especially the deeper you get, I more go like to the point and part way and go from this point to this way. And then what happens is those don't necessarily meet up exactly, and you wind up with little shavings between going this way and going this way. And it makes maybe a little bit of roughness in your book, but that's okay because we'll line this anyway, so that doesn't matter so long as we've got a pretty good cut. So now that we've got it this far, the cover that I originally did, let's see, this was my original cover, and because the one end wound up bigger, the cover does not fit. And if I put it this way, it fits a little better, but still it doesn't fit right because it just wound up going at a bit of an angle. And so I wound up just taking and making a new cover just a little bit bigger all the way. Let's do it this way. You'll be able to see it better. I made a cover that's just a little bit bigger all the way around. And I really didn't measure. I just, I just added, let's see here, about 1/4 of an inch here and 1/4 of an inch on each end. So that way it would be longer this way to go ahead and take up that extra area in my book. So now it looks much better. And, we don't have part of the book kind of sticking out the edge. So now that we've got our cover is ready, but we're not going to put it on until we glue this together. And the way we're going to do that is with just some water glue. Water glue is 2 parts glue to 1 part water. And this water glue has been setting for a long time. So it's actually a little bit thicker than that. It's about the consistency of just plain Elmer's school glue. And so what we're going to do is just really quickly just take some of that glue. And I usually glue the first couple of pages together like this. We are not going to do the whole book that way, so don't worry about that. And just do the first few pages. Just put some glue there to hold them together. And then what we're going to do, I might do a couple more than that normally, but then what we're going to do is we are just going to paint the edges, and then we're going to put this between some parchment paper and put a heavy book on it to just let this dry. Now because I already had the and if some glue gets inside there a little bit, that's totally fine. When you push it down together, it's going to it'll be nice and solid, so you don't have to really worry about if any glue soaks in, and you don't have to get a bunch of glue in there. And then I'm going to also put it on the inside and get it on there nice and well, just like that, because we're going to cover this, so we don't have to worry about any kind of aesthetics right now, what it's going to look like. We're just going to put that on there just because I'm just spreading it out so that I don't have a big dampness of glue sitting on that bottom page. There we go. And if you find that you think, oh, it needs a little more, you could always do a second coat after it dries. Well, I'm putting a little extra on right now, but if you think you want more when it dries, you can do that. But it's going to be inside your book cover, and it's not something that nobody's going to pull on it to see if the pages will come apart. So then once we get that done, hold on a second. Set that aside. Just wipe that little bit of glue off there. And then just get a piece of parchment. and put it on my table. And I'm just going to set that there. And I'm going to kind of just make sure that I've got it squared up. Make sure it's not all kittywampus. That looks pretty good. And then just get another piece of parchment, put it on top, and then just take a nice heavy book and set it right on top. Now we're going to let that dry overnight, and once it's dry, we'll just glue the back of it to the back cover. I do glue my spine usually to the spine, and then we will have our book, and I'll be back. I'll glue it to the cover after it's dry, and then I'll be back to show you what it looks like. Back in a minute. Okay, I'm back, and our book is all dry. So I did go ahead and glue the pages into the book. I glued on the spine and the whole back of the paper. I glued right to the back of our cover. So we have our nice little area here for our surprise. I sanded off the graham cracker box logo on there so that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but that way I'd have a start there. So while you're waiting for tomorrow's video, you can go ahead and you can either glue some pieces of paper in here, you can paint the whole thing inside and on the edges, and that looks really cute if you have some gold paint to do like the gold leafing. Just paint it gold along the edges of the book pages. And if you don't have gold paint, if you have some old shimmery eyeshadow, if you just crunch it up and mix it with a little glue, or if you have any of the powder eyeshadow or any mica powders, mix them with a little bit of glue and paint those on the edges to give it a little bit of a shimmer like the old books used to have. So that is our project for today. Tomorrow we will make the envelope to put our book in, and maybe tomorrow we will decorate our book up a little bit depending on how much time we have. But that is our project for today. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. See you tomorrow, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.